This man is my Lord and Savior. He's my GOAT. These other guys, they ain't shit. If you think Zywoo is better than s1mple, you didn't watch 2018. So I'm gonna bring you back. I'm gonna tell you about 2018, what's widely considered to be the best year of Counter-Strike from any player ever. There's not a lot of Counter-Strike players like him. The only people we could compare him to are Device, zywoo, and Donk, and maybe m0NESY. But those players can never hold a candle to what s1mple did in 2018. You could have your GOAT in zywoo, but just know, one of those years he won #1, it was fraudulent. It was all online. But I'm gonna start by bringing you back to when North America won its first major championship, defeating FaZe in the grand final 2-1 after a 15-11 comeback. Why was 2018 one of the best years of Counter-Strike ever? Astralis was dominating pretty much the entirety of 2018 from April on. They won the major, they won pretty much every S-tier tournament, they won the Grand Slam. Astralis was unbeatable. There was only one team that could consistently stop Astralis, and that was s1mple's Navi. Granted, their record wasn't that crazy against them, but every time that they did win, it was at one of the most impactful tournaments. Way back in 2017, if you didn't watch my first part, shame on you, Navi was struggling. Pretty much the entire year, they were bombing out of group stages, their team performance was just bad, there were role overlaps, they didn't have a true IGL, and to top it all off, s1mple just didn't have a teammate to help and keep up with him, really. He was on another level in 2017. He placed top 10 that year, but without a team around him, how could he succeed? We started to see a big change in 2018. Now that Electronic was on Navi, results started to pick up pretty fast, I might add. They made 2 finals at StarLadder Season 4 and DreamHack Marseille. The latter was one of the most heartbreaking finals ever, and the former was one of the most insane finals from a losing player ever. In these 2 events that I point to, you get to see the true dominance coming from s1mple. In StarLadder Season 4, it was like every single clutch he attempted, he won. s1mple was so confident, he brought cards to the event for when he wins clutches. And every time he won a clutch, he would hold up a card like a jackal or some shit. He carried Navi. He brought them straight to the final, where they faced against mousesports, a weak team that just wasn't on the level of Navi. mousesports, they had some good players. They had Rops, who went on to be the #3 best player of last year. But other than that, they really just had good team play. That was something Navi was lacking. There was not much support from the rest of them. Electronic would show up way more often than the rest of his teammates, but in some big moments, Electronic also went missing. In this final, Edward was second fragging, which is kind of crazy because he's kind of a bot. It didn't stop s1mple from putting up god tier numbers. The fact that it even went to 3 maps goes to show how powerful this one-man army is. One of the most important maps for Navi in all of 2018 was Mirage versus mousesports. On Mirage, we saw some of the best play ever. We've never seen someone in a final of such a big event playing like this. But then he dies. And then you're forced to spectate Zeus, who does nothing in the entire final, consistently putting bad performance after bad performance after bad performance. There was nothing more s1mple could do to win this tournament. But if StarLadder isn't enough evidence for why he's the GOAT, I gotta point you to DreamHack Marseille. 16-4 is always a stomp, regardless of where you go, what game you're in. 13-4, it's a stomp. s1mple was facing against prime astralis and top fragged in the server in a losing effort, losing the game 16-4. He had the highest kills per round, he had the highest damage. In these 2 events, s1mple did something that no Counter-Strike player had ever done before. He won an HLTV MVP in a losing tournament. He played so crazy that HLTV had to change their rules for how they give out MVPs and just give it to s1mple. Now, while I'm waxing lyrical and while you're watching these highlights, there's not a lot of context. How was s1mple so good? Well, it all comes down to his style. s1mple had a very unique style for oppers at the time. It's almost like he opt as though he was a rifler. He would opt close range, he would opt far. Any fight he was willing to take with the op, and he used it like a shotgun. A lot of people said back in 2018, if you want to learn how to opt, you should watch Device. Don't watch s1mple, because s1mple is making the wrong play. but it's working for him because he is s1mple. There's not a lot of players that can do that in the modern era who makes the wrong play consistently, but it just kind of works for him. You can maybe look at like a Brokey, but Brokey is super inconsistent. For s1mple to do this tournament to tournament, there's got to be something more to the story. And there was. His read on the game was incredible. As a CT player, every time the terrorists were going into a site, he would be there already. He didn't lock himself down to holding an angle. He was always pushing for more fights and more fights and more fights. He had the best mechanics in the entire server every time. The peak of 2018 for s1mple was easily ESL 1 Cologne 2018. Now, the biggest issue with Navi was the fact that there wasn't a lot of firepower outside of s1mple and maybe electronic. During this tournament, something changed. For the first time in 5 years, in the semifinal against Astralis, Zeus, he did something. He dropped 30 against Astralis and knocked them out of the tournament. After that, it was light work to take care of Big with s1mple. I mean... It's s1mple, no one's heard of him since. During the summer, Navi had a pretty good run. They won 3 tournaments in a row, 2 of which didn't have Astralis, so it was kind of fraudulent, but they were still winning the tournaments that mattered. Their adversary, Team Liquid, was always beating them, but couldn't win those tournaments where Astralis wasn't at. This automatically put Navi as the second best team of 2018. That was due in large part to just s1mple. Just s1mple was able to bring this team, who had okay strats, an okay floor, and like a below average anchor, to second best in the world. After the first half of 2018, a lot of people were saying they could contend with Astralis. It wasn't dead set that Astralis was going to have an era until the Faceit Major in London. While one of the worst majors of all time, was an impressive run for Navi. They easily made it all the way to the final.
Actually died in the end as well. So Glocks, oh, they're stabbing each other as well.
You did not expect him to be there. s1mple's even just stopped. Oh, look, they're staring at each other.
They're going
oh,
mad.
Man. He's pissed about that.
Edward's like, I'm so sorry, boss. Please.
please don't knife me in real life after the game.
Oh my God.
I'm so sorry.
Why does Edward look so distraught with this? Oh, they're not having a laugh. They're actually having a proper argument.
I'm going to suspect something. I'm going to suspect that they're not arguing about that.
They easily made it all the way to the final, where they would face off against Astralis. This final really was exciting before it happened. It looked as though all of Navi was actually working as a unit for once, and the entire team could potentially overthrow Astralis as the #1 team in the world. If Navi won this major, we would look at 2018 a lot differently. But I will say, this was the only time s1mple pulled a zywoo and went missing in the final. The only person that actually put up numbers was Electronic, and I'm willing to bet if s1mple did do his normal s1mple shit, he would have beat Astralis, or brought it to a third map. There was a close map in here, a 16-9 on Overpath. After the Faceit Major, it was kind of unfortunate for the rest of the year. Navi didn't make any notable runs after the fact, and it was clear that roster changes were, at this point, a requirement. Zeus was planning his retirement, and Edward was just terrible. The only player that I would argue was worse than Edward is Flamey, but we'll get to him later. Not to mention the coach Kane, who was seen consistently arguing with the players in the middle of the game. But as you've seen during the highlights I've been playing throughout this video, 2018 was just a milestone year. Despite his team's poor performances, he was consistently bringing them to deep runs, bringing them to titles, and constantly working to be better. There's a narrative around zywoo. Zywoo acts like he doesn't really care. I'm just chilling, to be honest. I'm just chilling. Nah, fuck that. That's a loser's mentality. s1mple, every time he lost, he could be dropping a 1.4 rating for the tournament, look back and be like,
I think I should practice more. I don't feel like right now I'm on my level. It doesn't actually mean that I have MVP because we lost the game, but I just told Mouseport that thanks for these emotions.
He wanted to make a claim as the GOAT, and he did that successfully this year. This year was the best year of Counter-Strike we've ever seen from any player. The only person who could beat this year was s1mple himself later on in 2021. But I just needed to wax lyrical on 2018. I'm a s1mple truther. zywoo doesn't have shit on this guy, and we're gonna get to him in 2019. But that's gonna have to wait until next month or next week. I don't know. Whenever I make that video, I guess. If you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe. If you want your comment to be featured at the ending of next video, feel free to leave a comment on what you thought was interesting about this video, and I'll pin it to the ending of next video. I really do appreciate you guys for sticking with me, even though I'm super inconsistent. I'll see you guys later. Peace.